Well, alrighty, gang. Welcome back to the Active Self-Protection Podcast. I'm yet again your host, Mike Bolivar, and I remain, with God's will and your listenership, your favorite former Fed.
Wilderness Tactical has been around for longer than the gun you're carrying has been, and they have been making high-quality products for concealed carriers for literally decades. I wear their low pro belt every year. The webbing is the best in the industry, and I won't wear anything else. If you're looking for a good CCW belt, check them out.
With me today is a new friend of mine. His name is Tace. Tace hails from beautiful South Africa. We're getting super international, by the way. I had a Brazilian interview earlier, and now this fine gentleman. So I love the international love, and the people calling in from writing in from other countries is fantastic. He is an attorney by trade. He is married with one lovely daughter, and he joins us live from South Africa. Sir, how are you?
I'm fine. Thanks a lot, Mike.
So your story is a pretty harrowing one. I'd put it up there in the sort of top 5% of the stories we've had as far as, danger level and things that almost were that fortunately didn't go as badly as they could have. So you live in South Africa. I think most people who aren't from South Africa, from other countries that pay attention to the world, hear a lot of negative about the sort of crime situation down there. And I just don't know what's true and what's not. What is your kind of perception as a native local South African of the crime problem? I know there's a big carjacking problem for a long time. What is that like? Is it still like that in your opinion?
Now, look, there's a lot of serious crime here. To be honest, I think it's maybe a bit of the old frog sitting in the pot of warm water, slowly heating up. So it is the new normal for us. But yeah, there's a lot of violent crime, a lot of carjackings, home invasions is a big thing, and well, from what I can pick up from the podcast, it's different here than in America, where most of the home invasions would not occur during the day. It would be in the evenings, and it's often accompanied by torture and rape, where they want certain things. They force people to open the safe. They want the firearms, especially the firearms and other valuables. But that makes it sound like this place is a horrible place. It's a wonderful place to live,
Right.
but you really need to be open to what's out there. You need to be realistic.
Yeah, I mean, my experience as a law enforcement officer in the United States, I haven't worked all over the place, but I've worked a lot of different places in the United States. And home invasions, not all of them, but the vast majority of home invasions are conducted by criminals who are targeting other criminals. Usually it's for drugs or money or guns. So they, one group of thugs knows that another group of thugs has just gotten a bunch of cocaine to sell, and they know where it is, and they arm up and go over there and jump in the house and beat everybody up and take the cocaine and leave or whatever. Just sort of regular people having their home broken into in that manner. It happens for sure. But it's not nearly as prevalent as sort of crook on crook violence, as I like to say. So how long have you been sort of aware of your need to protect yourself and or your family? Because it happens at different points in different people's lives. Is this something you feel like you've always had in the back of mind, or is it something that happened as an adult or after you got married, or kind of characterize how that is, your headspace is in that arena?
Yeah. Well, look, I grew up in the era of Rambo and Commando, and so I had a fascination with firearms from a small age. My dad wasn't really into that. They didn't mind guns, but my dad had a semi-auto shotgun and a pistol in it, but that was it, and we never really went out to shoot or anything like that. And then when I got into university, I misappropriated some of my study loan to go and buy a gun. And from then on, I read a lot. Back then, the internet wasn't what it is now, so it was a lot of American gun magazines and things like that. But pretty soon you became, and since I carried the firearm everywhere, I wanted to be serious about being safe with it and being able to use it properly. When I bought it, I also bought a Dillon RL 550, the reloader. So I was reloading my own ammo. I was shooting first IPSC and then later on IDPA, and now we shoot IPSC again. So I was always, say, since age, shall we say, since about 24, I've had the gun, or I've had guns. And before that, I was carrying a knife and pepper spray. So yeah, quite a while.
Yeah, better than nothing. A knife and pepper spray are literally better than nothing. I'm a big fan of pepper spray, by the way. We talk about that all the time, so I won't beat that dead horse any more than I already have. Can you kind of characterize gun culture in South Africa? Is it like the United States where guns are prevalent? You can go buy one at a gun shop, that sort of thing, or is there a lot of licensing or um, sort of government interference in your ability to carry a gun? How does that work in South Africa?
Yeah, there is a lot of government interference. However, look, traditionally, especially about in the Afrikaans community, but South Africans as a whole, we from the colonial times when we were colonialized by the English and forward back, same as you guys did, we were known as a nation of riflemen, and that has always remained to a certain extent. Unfortunately, when the ANC took over, they enacted new laws. Now, this is quite common that we see with socialist, Marxist governments. They want more control over that. And it absolutely massacred the firearms market in the beginning. There was a lot of restrictions placed. You now had to join a club. You had to do this. You had to do that. And then, ironically, it had the opposite effect. Since people were now forced to join clubs to become proficient, to have certain amounts of participation, it then started growing, which was wonderful. For instance, when I was younger, you couldn't buy an AR-15 in South Africa simply because we didn't have them here. I think the best
Right.
you could do was maybe a Ruger Mini 14, or you could buy an LM5, which was the local civilian version of the R5 that the army used. And then so now it's pretty strong. But yes, there's a whole licensing system. You have to go through competency training. After the competency training, you have to apply to the police for a competency certification. After you've got that, you have to apply for a licensing. And the licensing system is a bit of a it's a it's a bit of the wild west. It's starting to get better,
Mhm.
but you will wait anything between, if you are what we call a dedicated sportsman or a dedicated hunter. There's certain weapons that you get a certification from your association that you shoot with, and these days anything between 3 and 6 months before you get a license to go and collect your firearm. Previously, we used to wait up to 2 years or longer, but yeah, it's getting there. But yeah, there's a lot of people who have firearms, who want firearms, and we see a lot of previously disadvantaged communities who's now getting into firearms. However, because of the process, and it's because it's so costly, it's really a problem for them. I know at some stage when it was there, some of the gun shops would do things like because some of these guys would live in dwellings that wasn't a brick and mortar building. They would have a shack, but these guys needed weapons because they were in terrible. So what they would do is they would make them a deal. They could pay off every month, and that would include your training. And they would come to your house. They would plant a pole in the house with cement, and then affix a safe to that, because that's part of our licensing system. You have to have a safe before you may own a gun, and the safe has to be affixed in a certain way. So they would do that for them, things like that we had. So it's difficult for them, and it's difficult for everybody. There's a definite financial hurdle to get over if you want to own firearms in South Africa. But
Yeah,
it's definitely healthy. There's a lot of people shooting.
that's great. It's so funny. I was talking to Stephen Gutowski about this last episode of the episode before, where it's like, look, I understand why people who aren't familiar with firearms or aren't self-defense minded are afraid of guns. Why, they're scary. They make a loud noise. They kill people, all that sort of thing. It makes perfect sense why the average person would think, well, yeah, it's good that we make sure people are competent, with their gun before we let them walk around with it or let them take it home or whatever. It's great if we have someone certifying that they know how to use it properly, not only to be accurate, but that they're prudent, that they're accurate with the gun, that they know situationally when they can or can't draw it or when they can and can't shoot it. All those things are wonderful and they're admirable. The problem is, as you said, the people who can't afford all this stuff are frequently the people who need a firearm to protect themselves the most. The people in rough areas and bad communities, a single mom who barely makes enough to support her and her two kids, doesn't have time to go to a bunch of classes probably or babysitting, doesn't have the money to pay for all these licenses, doesn't have money even to buy a gun. So there has to be balance in there somewhere where it isn't completely the Wild West. But as soon as you get the government involved, and I mean any government involved in between its citizenry and its ability to defend itself, in our case against criminals and or the government itself, if it becomes tyrannical. That's what our Second Amendment was put in place to do, was to balance the odds, because our founders knew that our system is made up of human beings, and in the human being pool there are good and bad people, and some of the bad people might get in charge, and if they do, we need to have a fallback plan. That's what the Second Amendment is for. All right, I'm done preaching at this point, but that's very interesting. So as far as a permit to carry a gun, is that a thing that you need to get, and how hard is that process as far as getting a, we call it a CCW, I'm not sure what you call it there.
Yeah, that's the irony. If we compare our two systems, is as soon as I get a license for a firearm, I can use it anywhere for any legal purpose that I can. So in other words, if I get a license for a pistol, I can immediately carry it wherever I. In fact, our law requires me when I carry a firearm out in public, it has to be concealed. It has to be covered and concealed at all times, unless I wear a uniform, either a security guard or a police officer.